All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling something absolutely wild, traversable wormholes. Now, usually when we hear the word wormhole, our minds instantly jump to sci-fi blockbusters and space magic, right? But today, we're bringing this concept straight down to Earth, into the realm of real, testable laboratory science. The whole purpose of our explainer today is to walk through a highly grounded, falsifiable hypothesis that explores the very first baby steps toward actually understanding traversable wormholes. We're going to look closely at the exciting work of researcher, inventor, and author Kevin L. Brown, who has proposed a brilliantly rigorous way to test some of these wild ideas in a controlled environment. So, let's get to it. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We'll systematically cover the wormhole physics problem, testing a new hypothesis, the validation test mechanism, strict falsification parameters, and finally, building the evidence ladder. Section 1, the wormhole physics problem. To kick things off, let's make sure we're completely on the same page. A wormhole is basically a hypothetical shortcut connecting two distant points in spacetime, so you don't have to travel a massive distance through normal space. You know the classic analogy. Take a piece of paper, draw a dot on each end, and instead of drawing a line across, you just fold the paper so the dots touch. Now, Albert Einstein's theories of general relativity completely allow for the mathematical geometry of these shortcuts. But, as we all know, math written on a chalkboard is vastly different from creating a physical tunnel in space that you could actually travel through. And that brings us to the giant elephant in the room, the negative energy roadblock. You see, ordinary matter simply won't work for building a wormhole. Gravity inherently pulls things together, so if you try to open a space-time tunnel, gravity is going to crush it inward and collapse it instantly. To hold it open, you need highly unusual negative energy conditions. Think of it like an anti-gravity scaffold that pushes outward to keep the tunnel from caving in. The problem? Well, quantum physics basically says no way to keeping that much negative energy around for any useful amount of time. Because of these existing mathematical roadblocks, we just can't wish a stable wormhole into existence using the physics we currently understand. Section 2, testing a new hypothesis. Because we obviously can't build a giant space shortcut today, researcher, inventor, and author Kevin L. Brown proposes a brilliant, much smaller, and completely testable first step. He asks, can an information-controlled physical apparatus produce a reproducible scalar field effect that cannot be explained by established electromagnetic or experimental physics? Let's translate that into plain English. Basically, can we build a specific machine, feed it data, and see if it creates a brand new type of invisible energy called a scalar field? A scalar field might sound intimidating, but it just means a field that has a value everywhere in space, but no direction. Kind of like a map showing the temperature in a room. Every spot has a temperature, but it's not blowing in a direction like the wind. We're looking to see if normal science can explain this new temperature-like field, or if we found something entirely new. Now let's be crystal clear here, because it's absolutely vital. We must separate the narrow claim of testing for a new invisible field from the massive claim of actually creating a wormhole or bending spacetime. In this experiment, we're looking for a tiny ripple in a pond, okay? We're not trying to part the entire ocean. Science builds its credibility by moving in strict, measurable, tiny increments, and this hypothesis remains fiercely grounded in that reality. Section 3, the validation test mechanism. So how do we actually pull this off in a lab without getting totally lost in abstract math? The experiment follows a beautifully simple, logical chain of cause and effect mapped out in 5 steps. First, we gather our measured information, the data. Second, that data goes to a controller. Third, the controller acts as the brain, telling our physical machine, the electromagnetic apparatus, exactly how to set its dials. Fourth, that physical machine acts as the source, generating our hypothetical new scalar field. And finally, step 5, a detector across the room tries to pick up the signal. It's a clear, unbroken pathway from raw data all the way to a physical measurement. Actually, let me pause on a really crucial insight here, because it clears up a lot of confusion. The actual physical source of this new field is the electromagnetic field produced by the apparatus, not the abstract information itself. You know, information isn't some magical, mystical force that bends the universe by simply existing. The data merely turns the dials. The physical machine, plugged into the wall and generating real energy, is doing literally all of the heavy lifting. Now, why is a highly specific measurement so incredibly important in physics? Because a precise number gives us a target. If this hypothetical scalar field truly exists, Kevin L. Brown's mathematical model predicts exactly how it should behave. If you take your detector and simply double its distance from the machine, the signal strength should reliably drop down to roughly 48 to 50% of its original reading. No more, no less. This gives us a highly specific mathematical bullseye to aim for in the lab. Section 4. Strict falsification parameters. The absolute hallmark of excellent science isn't just designing tests to prove yourself right. It's meticulously defining exactly how you can be proven wrong. These are our tripwires. If we double the distance and the signal doesn't drop by exactly 48 to 50%, the hypothesis fails. If we turn the machine almost completely off, but the detector still reads a strong signal, it fails. And what about environmental drift? If the signal we're reading is just the result of a heavy truck driving by outside and vibrating the table, or the machine itself just normally heating up the room, the experiment is a bust. There is absolutely zero wiggle room for flukes. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the ultimate proof against those flukes, the reversal test. If we run the experiment using an electric-dominated source, it should produce a specific signal. But if we switch the machine over to a magnetic-dominated source using the exact same amount of energy, the math demands that the signal must reverse completely. Think about it. Ordinary room heat or a vibrating table don't just magically and perfectly flip and reverse because you changed a setting. If the signal flips, it proves the effect is genuine. If it doesn't flip, the theory is dead.
Furthermore, we have to rule out how the dials are turned in the first place. This is called controller provenance. It literally does not matter if the machine gets its data from incredibly complex quantum entanglement, a random computer chip, or just a human hand manually turning a knob. If the physical machine ends up in the exact same state, it must produce the exact same physical result. If the resulting signal magically changes just because we used a human instead of a computer to push the button, the model is proven completely wrong.
Section 5. Building the evidence ladder. So let's say we run this experiment and it actually survives all these brutal tests. What does it mean for the real world? Well, let's keep our feet firmly on the ground. A success here still does not automatically demonstrate a wormhole. Even if we successfully detect a new scalar interaction in the lab, a massive theoretical burden remains before any scientist could responsibly claim they've found a shortcut through spacetime. A future, fully functioning wormhole model would still require entirely new, unproven physics to hold it together. We'd still need to figure out that exotic stress energy we talked about, that bizarre negative anti-gravity energy to keep the tunnel open. We have to ensure we aren't violating energy conservation. We also absolutely have to maintain causality, which just means the cause has to come before the effect, ensuring we don't accidentally invent a universe-breaking time travel paradox. It is a colossal leap from a lab signal to a stable throat in deep space. And that is precisely why the structured hierarchy and evidence ladder is so critical to anchor our understanding. Step 1 is building a local electromagnetic source. Step 2 is successful scalar field detection. This is exactly where Kevin L. Brown's proposed experiment lives. We're at the very bottom of the ladder, looking up. Only if we pass Step 2 can we even begin to search for Step 3, an independent gravitational effect. And way up at the top, Step 4, is our science fiction dream, a stable, traversable wormhole. Extraordinary conclusions only arrive after the ordinary, methodical steps beneath them survive rigorous attempts to prove them wrong. Which leaves us with a truly awe-inspiring thought to wrap up this explainer. If researcher, inventor, and author Kevin L. Brown's initial modest scalar field hypothesis is experimentally proven true in a lab, if it passes every single tripwire without failing, what other seemingly impossible concepts are waiting on the next rungs of the ladder? Conquering Step 1 might just be the spark we need to rewrite the boundaries of our universe. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep questioning everything.